16 wins and 6 losses. That's where we are right now, sitting comfortably near the top of the Western Conference, looking like legitimate championship contenders for the first time in years. But there's something missing, something that keeps me up at night as a Lakers fan, something that could be the difference between another early playoff exit and banner number 18 hanging in the rafters at Crypto.com Arena. February 5th is circled on every calendar in the Lakers organization right now, and the decisions Rob Pelinka makes before that deadline could define this entire season. Welcome back to Lakers News Fan Report, your #1 destination for breaking news, insider analysis, and everything you need to know about our beloved Los Angeles Lakers. I'm here to break down the most critical storyline facing this franchise right now, and trust me, what I'm about to reveal is going to change how you watch every single game from this point forward. Let me take you back to last season for a moment. The Lakers made a move that didn't get nearly enough attention at the time, but it proved to be absolutely crucial to whatever success we had down the stretch. Dorian Finney-Smith came to Los Angeles and immediately provided something this roster had been desperately lacking. He gave us a legitimate 3-and-D wing who could guard multiple positions, knock down corner threes at a respectable clip, and most importantly, fit seamlessly into what we were trying to do on both ends of the floor. He wasn't flashy, he wasn't putting up 20 points per game, but he was exactly the type of role player that championship teams need. The kind of guy who does all the little things, who accepts his role, who shows up every single night and gives you solid professional basketball, and then we let him walk in free agency. Just like that, gone. Now I understand the salary cap constraints, I understand the financial realities of running an NBA franchise, and I understand that sometimes you have to make difficult decisions about which players you can afford to keep. But here's what's become painfully obvious through the first 22 games of this season. We haven't adequately replaced what Finney-Smith brought to this team, and that absence is creating a vulnerability that elite teams are going to exploit when it matters most. Jake LaRavia was supposed to be part of the solution. Young player with potential, someone who could develop into that 3-and-D role over time. But the reality is he hasn't earned starters minutes, and when you're a team with championship aspirations and you have Luka Doncic in his absolute prime, you can't afford to wait for young players to develop into roles you need filled right now. Marcus Smart was another piece that was supposed to help address this need. Veteran presence, championship experience, defensive intensity. But he can't stay healthy, and you can't build your rotation around a player who's constantly in and out of the lineup with various injuries. So here we are, 16-6, playing good basketball, but still searching for that one missing piece that could take us from good to great. And the fascinating part about this situation is that it's not just the front office and the coaching staff who recognize this need. According to recent analysis from Lakers insiders, it's Luka Doncic himself who's making it clear that this roster needs reinforcement. When your superstar point guard, the guy who controls everything we do offensively, is essentially forcing the organization's hand and demanding that moves be made to improve the supporting cast, you have to pay attention. You have to act. Doncic has been absolutely sensational this season. His court vision is otherworldly. His ability to control tempo and dictate how defenses play us is remarkable, and he's shown a maturity in his game that suggests he's ready to carry this team deep into the playoffs. But even the best players in the world need help. Even Luka Doncic can't single-handedly win a championship without the right pieces around him, and what he needs most right now is a wing player who can space the floor, make open shots when Luka creates them, and most importantly, take on difficult defensive assignments so that Luka can conserve energy for the offensive end. This brings me to the player that everyone in the Lakers universe needs to be watching closely over the next several weeks, Dorian Finney-Smith. Yes, the same Dorian Finney-Smith we let walk away last summer, the same player who's currently with another organization, but whose skill set remains exactly what we need. And here's where things get really interesting. There's a growing sentiment within NBA circles that Finney-Smith could be available before the trade deadline, and the Lakers should absolutely be at the front of the line trying to bring him back to Los Angeles. Let me break down why Finney-Smith makes so much sense for this roster. First, there's the familiarity factor. He already knows the system, he already has relationships with players in this locker room, and there would be zero adjustment period. You plug him back into the rotation, and immediately he's contributing at a high level because he's done it before in this exact environment. Second, his shooting percentages are exactly what we need. He's a career 37% three-point shooter who's comfortable taking and making corner threes, which is the most valuable shot in basketball when you have a playmaker like Luka creating opportunities. Third, his defensive versatility is elite. He can guard ones through fours, he can switch on screens, he can play in drop coverage, and he brings an intensity on that end of the floor that raises the level of everyone around him. But here's what really excites me about the possibility of bringing Finney-Smith back to LA. It's not just about adding one player, it's about how that one player unlocks everything else we're trying to do. When you have a legitimate 3-and-D wing who can guard the opponent's best perimeter scorer, it allows Anthony Davis to roam more freely as a help defender. It allows our guards to be more aggressive in passing lanes because they know there's reliable help behind them. It creates better spacing offensively because defenses have to respect the shooting threat. Everything becomes easier when you have that type of player on the floor. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. Why would Finney-Smith's current team trade him if he's such a valuable player? That's a fair question. And the answer lies in understanding how NBA franchises think about their timelines and their competitive windows. Not every team is in win-now mode. Some organizations are building for the future, accumulating draft picks and young assets, and they view veteran players as trade chips that can help accelerate their rebuilding process. If Finney-Smith's current team decides they're not competing for a championship this season, and if the Lakers come calling with an attractive package of draft compensation, there's absolutely a pathway to making this deal happen. The other name that keeps circulating in trade discussions is Andrew Wiggins. And look, I understand the appeal. Wiggins is a former #1 overall pick who's proven he can be a valuable contributor on a championship team. He won a ring with Golden State in 2022. He's shown he can knock down threes at a respectable rate, and he brings size and athleticism on the wing that would give us another dimension. But here's my concern with Wiggins: consistency. Throughout his career, he's been maddeningly inconsistent, showing flashes of brilliance followed by long stretches of mediocrity. He's also dealing with the back end of a max contract, which makes the financials more complicated than a Finney-Smith deal would be. That being said, if Rob Pelinka determines that Wiggins is the best available option and the price is reasonable, I'm not going to complain about adding a player of his caliber. The key is that we need to add somebody. Standing pat and hoping that LaRavia develops or that Smart stays healthy is not a viable strategy for a team that's trying to maximize what might be the final years of championship contention with our current core. Let's talk about what a realistic trade package might look like for Finney-Smith. We're not talking about giving up multiple first-round picks or parting with young core pieces. This would likely be a deal centered around a future first-round pick, maybe a pick swap, and potentially a young player or two who aren't in our regular rotation. It's the type of move that doesn't mortgage the future but addresses an immediate need. And when you're 16-6 and playing as well as we are right now, that's exactly the type of calculated risk you should be willing to take. The timing of this potential move is also crucial. We're approaching the midpoint of the season, and teams are starting to figure out their identities. The Lakers have shown we can compete with anyone when we're healthy and firing on all cylinders, but we've also shown that we have exploitable weaknesses that smart teams will target. The longer we wait to address the 3-and-D wing need, the more time opposing coaches have to game plan against us and expose that vulnerability. Making a move sooner rather than later gives us more time to integrate a new player and build chemistry before the playoffs begin. I also think about what this means for Luka Doncic's development and his long-term future with this organization. We drafted him to be a franchise cornerstone, to be the guy who leads us back to championship glory. He's held up his end of the bargain, improving every single season and establishing himself as one of the elite point guards in the NBA. Now it's the organization's responsibility to hold up their end by surrounding him with the pieces he needs to succeed. When your star player is essentially telling you what the roster needs, you have an obligation to listen and to act. The broader context of the Western Conference also matters here. Look around the league right now. The competition is absolutely brutal. You've got the defending champion Nuggets still rolling with Jokic. You've got the Suns with their big three. You've got the Clippers, who are always dangerous. The Mavericks are improved. The Warriors are retooling. Every single team in the playoff picture has legitimate talent and championship aspirations. If we're going to navigate through that gauntlet and come out on top, we can't afford to have glaring weaknesses in our rotation. We need to be as complete as possible, with answers for every matchup and every situation. Here's something else that doesn't get talked about enough: the psychological impact of making a win-now move. When a front office goes out and acquires a player before the trade deadline, it sends a message to the entire roster. It says, we believe in this group, we think we can win now, and we're willing to invest resources to give you the best chance to succeed. That kind of organizational commitment can galvanize a locker room and create momentum heading into the most important part of the season. Conversely, standing pat and doing nothing can create doubt and frustration, especially if players feel like the front office isn't doing everything possible to maximize the team's championship window. Let me also address the financial side of this equation, because I know some fans worry about the luxury tax implications and the long-term salary cap situation. Yes, the Lakers are already spending significant money. Yes, adding another rotation player will increase the tax bill. But here's the reality. Ownership has shown they're willing to spend when the team is competitive and when there's a legitimate path to a championship. We're not a small market team worried about every dollar. We're the Los Angeles Lakers, one of the most valuable franchises in all of professional sports, and when you have a chance to win, you spend the money. You worry about the tax bill later. Championships are what matter, and you can't put a price on banner 18. The other consideration is opportunity cost. If we don't make a move now and we fall short in the playoffs because we lack that one additional piece, we'll spend the entire offseason wondering what if. What if we had pulled the trigger on that trade? What if we had given Luka the help he needed? Those are the kinds of regrets that haunt franchises for years. On the other hand, if we make the move and it doesn't work out, at least we can say we tried everything possible to maximize our championship window. I'd rather live with the consequences of being aggressive than live with the regret of being too cautious. Looking specifically at how Finney-Smith would fit into our rotation, I envision him starting alongside Luka, Anthony Davis, and our other core pieces. He'd probably play somewhere between 28 and 32 minutes per game, taking on the toughest perimeter defensive assignment every single night. Offensively, he'd spend most of his possessions spotting up in the corners, crashing the offensive glass, and making the simple, correct play. He's not going to demand the ball or need plays called for him, which is perfect for a team that already has multiple offensive initiators. He's the ultimate complementary player, and that's exactly what we need. Defensively is where his impact would be most felt. Right now, we're asking players to guard positions and matchups that aren't ideal for their skill sets. We're seeing mismatches that opposing coaches are exploiting. Finney-Smith would immediately shore up those weaknesses and give our defensive coordinator more flexibility in terms of schemes and matchups. He could guard a quick point guard on one possession and a bigger wing on the next. That versatility is invaluable in today's NBA, where positionless basketball is the norm. I also think about the playoff implications specifically. Regular season success is great, and being 16-6 is encouraging, but we all know that the playoffs are a different animal. Rotations shorten, every possession matters more, and the margin for error becomes razor thin. In that environment, having a player like Finney-Smith who you can trust in high-leverage situations is absolutely critical. He's not going to get rattled by the moment, he's not going to make mental mistakes, and he's going to give you consistent effort every single night. Those are the qualities that show up in playoff box scores as winning plays, even if they don't always translate to impressive counting stats. So here's where we are as we approach the trade deadline. The Lakers are in a great position at 16-6, but we have an identified need that must be addressed if we're serious about competing for a championship. Dorian Finney-Smith represents the ideal solution, a player we're already familiar with, who fits perfectly into what we're trying to do on both ends of the floor. Andrew Wiggins is another name worth monitoring if the price is right, and the fit makes sense. But the key takeaway is this: Rob Pelinka needs to make a move before February 5th. Standing pat is not an option for a team with championship aspirations and a superstar point guard who's essentially demanding reinforcements. The next few weeks are going to be absolutely critical for the future of this franchise. Every game we play provides more data about what we need and where our weaknesses lie. Every conversation Rob Pelinka has with other general managers could be the one that leads to the deal that puts us over the top. And every day that passes brings us closer to that February 5th deadline when the opportunity to improve this roster will close until the offseason. Here's my final analysis of this situation. The Lakers are good right now, potentially great, but we're not complete. We have a glaring need for a 3-and-D wing who can guard multiple positions and knock down open threes. Dorian Finney-Smith checks every single box and would immediately make us better on both ends of the floor. The cost to acquire him shouldn't be prohibitive, and the impact he'd have on our championship chances would be significant. This is exactly the type of move that championship organizations make when they identify a need and have the resources to address it. Now it's up to Rob Pelinka to get it done. Before we wrap up, I want to hear from all of you. Do you think the Lakers should prioritize bringing back Dorian Finney-Smith, or would you rather see them pursue Andrew Wiggins or another wing option? What would you be willing to give up in a trade to address this need? And do you believe this current roster can win a championship as currently constructed, or is adding a 3-and-D wing absolutely essential? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because I genuinely want to know how Lakers Nation feels about this critical decision facing our franchise. If you want to stay on top of every development leading up to the trade deadline, every piece of breaking news about potential deals, and every bit of analysis about how moves would impact our championship chances, make sure you're subscribed to Lakers News Fan Report. Hit that notification bell so you never miss an update. Share this video with your fellow Lakers fans who need to understand what's at stake over these next few weeks. Let's build this community together and support our team through every decision, every game, every step of the journey toward Banner 18. The Lakers are building something special, and the moves we make before February 5th could determine whether we're cutting down nets in June or going home disappointed. Let's go, Lakers!